スタジオ3万
Hello, welcome to Cosplay Confessional. We're here to explore the who's, how's and why's of cosplayers and the hobby that they love. I'm your host, Kisasa Cosplay, a cosplayer with 6 years of experience.
And I'm Dave. I'm a cosplay enthusiast who's never done a cosplay, so 0 years for me. And this is our first episode, so things are going to be a little bit different this time around. Usually we're going to have another guest come in to talk us through their costumes and their cosplays and their stories, but today it's just going to be us, because the first time we met a while back...
Many years ago now.
Yeah, what did you say it was 2018?
I think it was 2018. It's like 5 years, which makes me feel aged.
Yeah. And the first time we met, I was walking through the grounds of Wales Comic Con in Wrexham, and I was there with NerdOD, and we were looking for people to get into funny videos and have a fun time. And we spotted across the crowd a Kay Winnett Lee Fry, engineer and mechanic from the ship Serenity, and I thought, that is awesome. And I thought, I want to speak to these people. And you had a crew with you, and you were all Firefly characters, and it was such a cool thing. And from there, it was all right, these people, I get these people. I like what's going on with the costumes, and the effort that you went to really stuck with me. So from then on, I think we've tried to find each other every Comic-Con and event.
If we've ever both been there, I don't think we've missed each other so far. So
no, and I think that we have. There's been some really, really cool ones. So what I'd like to do, and in episodes as we go on, we can talk about some other ones. But there's a costume in particular that I'd love to talk about today. But we'll get to that. First of all, like when we met, the costume was great. The detail was fantastic. But what got you into it? That's the bit that really interests me, because I'm not a cosplayer. I'm someone who enjoys the craft, but I don't do it myself. But I see people who do it, and I see people who go from the one end of the spectrum, which is potentially a bodysuit or a morph suit or something, and then you go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. People have got facial prosthetics and handmade costumes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the effort that you put in is, more on that side of the spectrum. So what started that off for you? What got you there? Don't shake your head. The props that you bring make those costumes. So
I do love a prop. So it's 2017 when I started out. So it was the year before we met. So my first, going back a little bit before that, my first ever Comic-Cons were kind of like the hotel-based cons. So when it's more like for a specific TV show. And I went to a couple of those with my brother firstly. So some for like Arrow and The Flash. And then somebody suggested you should do this thing. It's called Comic-Con. They do one in London. So my first ever Comic-Con was London Comic-Con. So it was like straight into the deep end. 2016, and just saw all the costumes, thought they looked amazing, and then there was just that kind of like, I feel like I could do that. And Kaylee was my first ever cosplay. I watched the show. I was a late comer to Firefly, so I wasn't there back in the day. I watched it way after the fact, and I just loved it. And I thought it wasn't a super difficult cosplay to start off. I thought, it's the overalls, and it's pretty simple. So I felt like that was something I could tackle. And then after I'd done it to my first con, it was just like literally no stopping me. Like I don't think I could go to Comic-Con in normal clothes now. I feel like it would feel really weird. I did it once, to be fair, for like half a day, because I had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction issue, and oh my days, did I feel uncomfortable walking around con in like just jeans and I was like, this is just wrong. Just does not feel right anymore. So ever since then, no stopping me, really.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting the way you play down the intricacy of the Kaylee cosplay, because I'll never forget when I saw you, and I don't know how many iterations it had been through by the time I saw you wearing that particular costume, but you had the parasol umbrella, you had the box of strawberries, you had the decoration and detail on the jumpsuit itself was just, it was right there. And I thought to myself, that's a lot of work, right? That's a lot of effort, surely. So what, like, as someone who's never done any of that, like, how long would that take you to put together? Like, how long were you making that costume before you wore it?
as I say, I mean, I'm very much still to this day. I'll see a cosplay and think, "Oh yeah, that's a simple one," and then as soon as I have that thought, I think, "Why do you do this?" Because it's never simple with you. Because then I get caught up on the details. I'm a real stickler for details, and then before I know it, it's like I've spent sort of 3 hours like looking for screen caps of like a tiny, So it always escalates. Kaylee probably maybe like 2-3 weeks. It probably took. So it was, I hadn't made it, I didn't make it from scratch as such. So the overalls, I found some base ones, but then all overalls you can buy are for guys, and guys have, maybe may shock you, but guys have a considerably larger crotch area in clothing than women do. So that was a definite issue when I first got it. So there was some serious adjustments were needed in that department at first. And then it was like doing the Chinese writing and stuff was like lots of watching and pausing at just the right parts and trying to do it that way. Dirtying them up was fun, like trying like boot polish and like paint and loads of different mediums to try and like make that work. Parasol painting. So I was kind of all in with the first one really. Like she's not really changed much since that first time I did her. I have remade the outfit actually, because it always really bugged me that my first one had buttons up the front instead of a zip. So eventually I totally remade them, but I mean they're very similar. That's pretty much the only difference. But now I have two sets, so if something goes seriously wrong, it's nice to feel like I have a backup, because it's like my go-to cosplay still to this day. So
No, I remember seeing, about changing it up, I remember seeing you at one of the Christmas Comic-Cons where you were there as Kaylee, but you added some multicolored tinsel to the parasol, and I just thought it was quite cool little touch to it, which was really nice.
That was a super fun one. Like, I really enjoyed doing that. I wish there were more. I mean, there probably would be if I thought about it, but it was a fun twist to do on it that was kind of... And again, because I'm such a stickler for the details, it was nice to be like, you have a bit more creative license in a way, rather than you're trying to replicate like obviously it was based on something, but it was nice to think, I don't have to have this exact pattern of material or whatever. It was just what worked. So it was differently, like in a different creative kind of way, you could put a twist on it. So that was cool.
Because that's something I want to think about is like, where's the line between being creative with it and being accurate with it? You know, when you're doing characters that are big in film or TV or video games, like where do you which is more important for you when you're putting it together? Like, do you want it to look like the character, or do you want to have done something cool with it? Or is there like a middle ground that you can find with it?
I suppose to an extent there's a middle ground. As I say, I definitely am a stickler for details. So I really do try and be as close to the source material as I can get. And, it's... Even if I think I'm going to be a bit more relaxed with an outfit, by the time I've got halfway through it, I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like, I thought I could, but I can't. So, I feel like personally, I probably come down more on the accuracy side of it. But that's not to say that I don't appreciate the more creative side, because I've seen some amazing costumes where people have put a real spin on things. And I think that's its whole own kind of skill, really, is kind of... Yes, it's a skill to be able to replicate something, but it's also a skill to have almost designed it yourself. So I do find that kind of cosplay really cool, even though it's not something I tend to do as much. Yeah.
And thinking about the details, because one of the things that I've always really liked about your cosplays are your props. And I
love a prop.
Well, that's it. It was never more obvious to me than when Robin from Stranger Things was a very popular character, great character in the show, really quite a cool cosplay to have, I would imagine. And I've seen a number of Robins. You were the first that I saw. You were the first. And you're the only one I've seen.
That's impressed. I'm impressed to hear I was the first, because there have been a lot.
You were the first Robin I saw. But you're the only Robin that I ever saw that had accompanying props outside of the name badge, maybe the whiteboard. Because you had a Russian English phrase book. I remember seeing you with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I think you had a tape player at one point as well, I think.
Yeah, I have the tape player that plays
Yeah,
the Russian recording. Yeah.
exactly. So like I saw that and it was sort of like, oh cool, she's dressed as Robin. Oh, she's got that. Oh, hang on, she's got that as oh, and that thing too.
Yeah.
Like that's like you say about the detail. Like that's one thing that's always blown me away is that you will take a cosplay that perhaps could be kind of simple, but you amp it up with those details, and the props are a big part of that. I mean, is that something that you have? This is a fun / trouble with, like getting the props right, or is that what like draws you to it, or is that a challenge you have to overcome?
Yeah, I've definitely I have in the past picked outfits based on the props. Like it's definitely a plus for me if I'm watching and then I think, because I possibly have maybe like one cosplay that doesn't have a prop. Like
Right.
if I don't have something I can carry around, I feel weird. Like I'll find something that can be a prop for
Yeah.
an outfit. Like the last weekend we just saw each other at well, actually no, you weren't there on the Saturday because I don't know what you were possibly doing that was more important.
I know.
But
Who'd have thought? Right?
I was there on Saturday, and so I'd done a Gilmore Girls cosplay, which is a very simple cosplay, and it was never one that I thought was going to get like super recognition because it's a bit niche. But I was like, right, I need a coffee cup. I need to have like the name of the diner on it. I was like, because it's just that something extra that's gonna make people think, oh, that's, and yeah, if I didn't have that in my hands, I don't. How do you pose in a picture without a prop? I need a prop. So yeah, it's definitely something that draws me to it. It can be hard, as you say with Robin. It was the actual dictionary that they use. Well, I'm not the literal one, but that they use in it. It's like the same edition.
Wow.
With the same cover. So like it did take a little bit of trawling on eBay and stuff like that, because once I'd found it out, I was like, well, it needs to be that one though. Like, and I can't let it go. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've seen people do it and they just had a Russian dictionary. I'm like, obviously that is absolutely fine. That's still great. Like, I'm not trying to knock it, but I'm like, no, but now I know which like, version it is. I'm a bit anal about that kind of thing. So, but it's a fun search. It's a fun search.
It elevates it too, right? It elevates it too, because it's that thing of if people, the number of people who stop you for photographs, I'm sure there's many. I mean, hell, I stopped you for photographs several times myself. But I imagine that they won't necessarily see that straight away. But if they do notice it, that's like oh wow, like that's something.
Yeah.
And that's one for me where my favorite cosplay of yours, and that's, I want you to know how high that praise is because you've done some amazing ones. But my favorite one is one that's, I don't know, perhaps not your like most complicated one, but it's the one where I saw it and thought, all right, first of all, I don't see that character cosplay very often. Number two, I love this character in the media anyway because they're great.
Yeah.
And three, you'd done it so well because again, you had the props to elevate it. Was Evelyn Carnahan from The Mummy. Yes. And I can say now, to this day, I have seen one other person cosplaying Evelyn. Again, one person ever who wasn't you. And the thing that differentiated it was they didn't have the props that you have. And it makes it, as soon as you notice that, it makes a difference. They had an old book, but it wasn't the book. It wasn't the book which you managed to replicate in your cosplay. Like where did that come from? Because like everyone loves The Mummy, right? The Mummy is a legendary film. Obviously, Brendan Fraser is real big again right now, but which makes me wonder if they're going to make some more. That would be great. But like this was before the kind of Renaissance. Like you were Evelyn Carnahan before he was like suddenly big in the news again. So where did that come from?
So basically, I mean, the inspiration for any cosplay there's always something that hits me for anything. There's always some kind of some sort of reason. And for this one, it was actually so it was during lockdown, or sort of the tail end of lockdown, 2020. And I was at my boyfriend at the time. I was staying over at his, and I was watching The Mummy. which is obviously a great film. It'd been a few years since I'd seen it. And I was thinking, yeah, this is really great. And to be fair, the clincher was his house was actually really cool and had some like Egyptian sarcophaguses in like not real ones obviously, but in the hallway. And I was just like, literally could get such cool photos if I did this cosplay with these. Like, I know that's not maybe a good reason to pick a cosplay, but I'd always loved her anyway. I'm a real bookworm. Like, I absolutely love to read. It's what I spend most of my time doing outside of cosplaying. So I could kind of relate to the like librarian character. Wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid. That was what I wanted to be when I was growing up. I think all kids did, really. Who didn't have that Egyptology book with like the little like jewel in the front? I mean, we all did.
Absolutely.
We were all cool dudes. So it had the backing, but the push was, I was like, that sarcophagus would make a cool photo with this cosplay. So that was kind of the spark. And then once I'd started it, then just kind of went from there. So that was what clinched me to doing it, was availability of good photograph locations and watching The Mummy during lockdown.
Well, hey, whatever made it happen, I'm grateful to, because it is my favorite. And I say you've have some fantastic ones. And what always gets me is when I've seen a couple of your cosplays, which I know are fantastic because I recognize the character and recognize what it's from, but I haven't played the game or potentially seen the show or the film. I mean, I saw you on Sunday as a character who, I'm going to show my ignorance now that I don't actually remember what the character is called.
Max from Life is Strange.
Thank you. And I've never played Life is Strange. I've heard fantastic things about the game, but I never played it. But
great game.
But that cosplay is like immediately recognizable. Like, I see it, like, that character from the game I've never played. So I imagine for anybody who is big on that game and is a big fan, like, what are the reactions that you get when you're wearing a costume, which isn't, again, not one I've seen many of, if any, off the top of my head, that I've seen at cons. What kind of reactions do you get from people who are big fans of these things?
It's nice. I mean, obviously there's always, I say always, I don't mean it like that, but there's people who will stop and ask for photos. But then there's also, quite often you'll just literally get people like, will just stop you and say, oh my God, I love your Max, or I love your, like, they don't even want a photo, or necessarily they just kind of want to like share that they get who you are and that they also love the game. And they'll just say, I love that game so much, like, thank you for doing it, they'll say sometimes, which is always like, oh my God, like, thank you for thanking me. Like, that's adorable. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, this weekend there was quite a bit. It's having a bit of a resurgence, I feel, Life is Strange, randomly. Like, I don't know why. I feel like we're on like a second wave of it. Because I think it came out in like I'm showing my ignorance there, but like 2013, maybe 2014. Yeah. Maybe not that early. But it's not exactly like a super new game. But yeah, I think the people who know it straight away, there's a lot of excitement for it. So yeah, it's just kind of a lot of nice kind of oh my God, I love your whoever is usually the kind of the sentiment.
What's the biggest reaction you've ever gotten to a costume?
Oh God. It's got to be to Kaylee, I think. Yeah. Like, I've had some really great reactions to her. And I've had people like take photos and be like, I'm going to send this to Jewel State and stuff like that, which I'm like, that's mental. I had once, naming no names, but there was a guest that was at a con who like stopped me to chat and was like, I know like Jewel and like she would love this, and like took a photo, like one of the guests. I was like, this is insane.
Oh, name names. Come on, I want to know who this is.
No. Because maybe they were just flattering me. Like, maybe it wasn't true. But they did say it. So, and I was like, that's made my day, whether it's true or not. So that was cool. So, yeah, there's definitely for her, I think, has been my biggest reaction in a cosplay. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I was in London, and I got chatting to one of the stall holders who had like a load of Firefly merch, and we were just like shooting the shit and saying like, we love Firefly, and being excited over it, and the fact that Nathan Fillion's going to Wales Comic Con. Please don't cancel, Nathan. Like, you're going to make my year. Please don't cancel. And I'd said about how like I cosplay Kaylee, and I was wanted to meet him as Kaylee, and you know, we were just chatting away. And this guy had said, "Oh, like, do you have any photos of your cosplay?" And I showed him this photo, and he was like, "Oh my god, I've actually seen this photo before. Like, someone's already shown me this photo of you." And I was like, "That's weird. Like, it's flattering," but I was like, "That's not the reaction I was expecting." He was like, "Oh my god, it's you," and I was like, "Oh god."
Famous in the right circles.
Firefly fandom are like a wild time. Like, I'm mildly famous in the Firefly fandom, but nowhere else in life. Like, honestly.
Well, I think that's a really good one, though.
That was surreal. That was surreal, but obviously cool.
I say, like, I mean, thinking of Firefly and Serenity, like, there's a number of cosplays you could do that are kind of simple, simple-ish from that. Kaylee's not one of them, right? Like, there's a lot of detail and effort that you can put into a Kaylee cosplay, which you do. So I can imagine that is the one where if you get that one right, it will stand out for those fans, most certainly.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're probably some of my like memorable reactions.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that makes me wonder, actually, because I'm thinking about the number of characters that I've seen you cosplay as. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think I've seen you cosplay at least 5 or 6 characters in real life. And I've seen probably a couple of others that I haven't actually seen in real life yet. So how many characters do you think you have? How many costumes do you think you have?
I feel like I should definitely know the answer to that off the top of my head, and I don't. It's definitely more than 20.
Oh, wow.
Maybe like 23? 22? Wow. Something like that. I think once back during lockdown, because I didn't have a clue, but then during lockdown, when we were all very bored and just trying to make content, there was a thing going around where it was like cosplay versus cosplayer, like everyone's doing the like side-by-side things. And I did that for all of them. And at the time I was like, oh my God, there's more than I realized. And I think I got to like 18 or 19, and I've done a couple more since then. So I think, yeah, around 22 maybe.
Wow.
So yeah, quite a few.
That's a lot. Do they all have somewhere to live? Like, is there like a wardrobe in your place that's just got all your costumes lined up, or what?
Well, I really have I have a very small room. I don't have a very big house, and I don't have a lot of storage. So they all live in the garage, in my garage, and they're all like boxed up. So there's like big sort of like plastic tubs that are just like box number 1, and then I have like, again, lockdown project, I have a little notebook that's like kind of where I've got like box 1 has Kaylee in it, and then I've got like a list of all like her components, and then like, so I can like cross-reference who's in what box, because it got to a point and I'd look for a cosplay and be like, I really don't want to get out like all 5 boxes right now.
Your cosplay inventory, I like it.
So yeah, so I'm actually quite proud of myself that I'm keeping up to it, because I thought it would be in chaos by now, and it's still kind of, everything lives where it's supposed to live. But yeah, unfortunately, it lives in the garage, which I wish it didn't have to, but I just could not. It would not fit in the house.
But it's got a detailed inventory, which I bet a lot of people, they might have it in the wardrobe, but I bet they haven't got a notebook.
I bet they don't have a notebook, no. So, and there's a little, like, note that's like, need to sort of remake this, or this doesn't really fit right now, or whatever. Just so I'm like aware. But yeah.
Some of the costumes you've mentioned, like, there are characters that are cool or into that particular thing, but like, what's the kind of thing that you would see and think, do you know what? I want that to be my next cosplay project. I want to dress this person now. Like, you recently did Max from Stranger Things. Again, not one I've seen in real life, sadly, but the photos look great. And like, that one it's really cool. And again, you've nailed it, because you've got yourself a cassette copy of Kate Bush, which is really, really cool. Running Up That Hill is my favorite song of the world, so I'm a fan either way. Yeah. I saw that costume. I was like, that's very, very cool. But like, what's the bit that catches you and you think, right, I want to be that character now. That's my next project. Like, what do you think? Yeah. Is there a common thread, or?
Not really. As I say, there's always a different reason, and usually, because I mean, there's a million ideas I have in my head for things I want to cosplay, and you'll every time I watch something, I think, oh, that would be cool to be, and there's some things that I'm probably never going to end up doing because maybe it's beyond my capabilities, or maybe yes, I could do it, but the amount of time it would take to make, I'm like, do I love it enough to want to put that time in? So a lot of ideas go through my head, and every now and then there'll be one, and I can tell if I'm going to do it because it sounds super cheesy, but I just get a feeling about it, and I'm like, yes, I know that this is what I'm actually going to do, and there's always there's always a different reason for them. I mean, Max is as in the life is. The Stranger Things Max. This has got so confusing, right? Because Stranger Things, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here. So Stranger Things, Life is Strange. Obviously, they sound very similar. So I already mixed them up. And then I decided to do Max from Stranger Things when I already do Max from Life is Strange. And one's called Max Mayfield and one's called Max Caulfield. And I'm like, I'm actually doomed every time I speak about one. So I don't even know which one I'm talking about right now. Stranger Things, Max. So she's the last new one I did. The thing with her was I'd never really considered doing her as a cosplay because I do 11 from the new season, and that was like the one that really caught my attention when I saw it. So I kind of just thought that was that. But then a friend of mine or someone I'm in like a group chat with, one of the many geeky group chats I'm in on Facebook, they literally put a link to like a Vinted listing, and they were like, oh, here's like the Quicksilver jacket that Max wears in season 4, and it's like, it's not my size, but like if anyone in here is interested. And I was like, that's 15 quid, that's not much. So then I was like, I could do a Max cosplay. So literally got sent a Vinted link, bought the jacket, and then just escalated. And I definitely probably then spent an additional 60 quid on the outfit at least. So it wasn't really a steal because then I had to buy a wig and the shoes and do you know what I mean? So I thought I was getting a bargain with the jumper, but then I'm like, oh, you never even wanted to do this cosplay.
It's the gateway
but
drug.
It was
it's
fun.
The one piece of costume that's the gateway to the rest of the outfit. Yeah.
But to be fair, once again, the thing that sold me was I was like, I can do the tape and I can do the letter. So like I have the Dear Billy letter. Right, well, I have it, like I wrote it out, but I'm there, like got the thing up on, and I was like, how many words are on line 1? Like sort of, so it had the exact same like spacing of no one's ever going to look at the letter. Do you know what I mean? Other than me, not that closely, but I'm just saying, if you did look at them side by side, it is the same. Take my word for it. So again, I almost was like, it's just a cool jumper, just wear it. But then I thought, oh, but the props, and that's what swayed me. Once again, it's the props. So
yeah.
But yeah, there's always a different reason. Sometimes, a couple of times, it's been guests that are going to cons. So like I did a Jane Cobb cosplay again from Firefly, and that was because Adam Baldwin was going to be at a con. So that was what made me push me to do that for that particular time, was that I wanted to meet him wearing it. There's been like groups that I've done with friends, and obviously then it's been nice to match and go around together. So that's prompted me to do it that way. Sometimes I just really loved a certain show I've watched or a film I've watched and thought, yeah, that'd be great. Or there's always something different, but there is always a reason.
Yeah.
And it's always got to be a character. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like it because I've just said that thing about Max, but it's always got to be a character that does mean something to me. Like it would never be just, oh, it's kind of a cool outfit, so yeah, which some people do, and that's fine because whatever, it doesn't matter what your reason is. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to do it and have fun in it, but I've never done something from something that I wasn't really passionate about, like the show or the game or whatever. So, because I think it shows when you're at a con, and because you doing a cosplay, you're going to attract people who are part of that fandom, and there's no point having people coming over to you and like, oh my god, and this means so much to me, and then you're there like, yeah, I just thought it looked cool. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to have that. You want to have that kind of
people
connection
want that
with them.
If
so
someone
there's
is
no
going to
point
be
if you're
that excited about it, if they get someone who's got no energy coming back at them about it, like that's quite. I can imagine that being quite a difficult thing. I'm interested to know what Adam Baldwin's reaction was to your Jane cosplay. That was.
He did enjoy it. I was slightly sad because my mum knitted me the hat.
Oh, wow.
My mum is amazing. She's a total legend. She taught me to sew. She taught me a lot of what I know, and she does knit, and I don't knit, or not well and not quickly. So
it's a fantastic hat too,
knitted me.
Well done to her.
It's a great hat. So she knitted me the hat, and she also knitted Adam Baldwin a hat.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted him to wear it in the photo. I was like, this will be amazing, and he would not wear the hat.
Wear the hat, Adam. Wear the hat.
So I was like, I mean,
it,
you do you, and I get it. And like, if every time someone came up for a photo, you did, obeyed their whim, and like, I get it. But I was like, he was like, I'll hold the hat, and I was like, it's not really the same, though, is it?
As a bald man, anybody gives me a hat, I'm wearing it. Anybody gives me a cool knitted hat, I am wearing it. So Adam Baldwin, shame on you.
That's what I thought. But, so, I mean, if you do look at the photo, he's holding the hat, but he's not wearing the hat. I'm wearing a hat.
He's the holding hat, at least. That's,
But the hat has touched Adam Baldwin, so,
Yeah.
But he did appreciate the cosplay, so.
That's good. No, I am. So, yeah, thinking about it, like, because of that effort and because of the work that you put into it, are there any cosplays that they were a great idea, but they didn't make it because you either decided that it was too much effort or too expensive, or you just thought, I don't really want to do this anymore? Anything like that?
Okay, that like sort of never made it off the cutting room floor kind of thing. Yeah. There was a time when I was going to do a Pepper cosplay from Encanto. Because a friend of mine does an amazing Bruno. It's absolutely amazing, and she's got so much love for it. And we thought, it'd be really fun.
It is a great Bruno.
So me and another friend of mine were like, oh yeah, well, it'd be really cool to do this together, and like, you have such fun doing it, and there's so much love for it right now. So my one friend was going to do Louisa, and she does do a Louisa now, and then I was going to do Pepper. And it kind of started off, as I've done a few times, I was like, you know what, I might buy this cosplay. And then I look into it, and then I'm like, oh, but that's not really right, is it? And that's not, and I'm awful. Because, the thing is, I don't judge anyone else for buying cosplays, but just for me, when I know what I'm like for details, and I know that I can do it, I mean, it's not always easy. So I'm picking all these outfits apart. No, I'm going to have to make it if I'm doing it. Okay, well, I'll make it. It's fine. So I'd watched the film, and I'd like have in my sad little cosplay notebook, I'd had sort of all the timestamps of like this scene. You can see this the collar of the dress.
Nothing sad about this level of detail. Nothing sad about that.
Oh, it is. It is a little bit sad. But like the more and more I looked into it, I was like, oh, there's so much more detail to it than I was imagining. And I ended up, as much as it's a fun show and I liked the outfit, I got to a point, and I'd even bought some material, and I was like, do you know what? I think for the amount of time I'd have to invest in this to really be happy with it, I don't know if I want to do it enough to, like, if it was like, this is my favorite thing ever, like, I'm not saying I would never put that time into a cosplay, and I probably have put that time into other cosplays, but for one that I just thought, oh, this would be a fun thing to do with my friends, eventually I was like, do you know what? I think I need to draw a line and say, I don't know if the sort of tens of hours that I would spend on it would be. So that was a very nearly maybe. Like, there's so many notes on it, and I definitely have some yellow material kicking around that I bought for it, but I just ended up thinking, I don't know if my heart's in it enough.
Yeah.
So that one never made it, and I don't think it will, because I feel like it's kind of had its day. Well, not had its day, but there's not so much excitement for it now.
There was definitely sometimes a moment, right? There was definitely
sometimes there's a window. Like, personally, say Robin, like, doing the Scoops thing, like, I really wanted to do that when it came out, and you said I was the first one you saw, and to be fair, that's one of the quickest cosplays I've ever made.
Really?
like as soon as I watched it, I started making that, and I think it was less than 3 weeks
Oh, wow.
before Manchester Con, which was when I wore it, and it was all fully made, all of it. So it was pretty fast, but like as you say, you see so many now. I was like, I think I got in at just the right time to be kind of a bit different still.
Yeah.
And it's not a cosplay I would do now, because like now the new season's out, and I don't know. I think that these things have a little bit of a shelf life.
Yeah.
So it's not really one that I would. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I would do it as a one-off, but I'm like, it's not one that I would tend to do now, because I think it had some things are timeless, like the Mummy. Do you know what I mean? It came out in 1999, and that's never not going to be relevant. That's always. But I think other things. That's maybe a matter of opinion. I don't know. People might disagree with that, but
I think I see that. I think there's when something is I'm gonna use one of my absolute favorite words now, part of the zeitgeist, and it's
big words for this time of night.
Didn't need to use that word, but when something is part of that kind of cultural consciousness, where Stranger Things, when a new season comes out, it's suddenly the biggest thing in the world. The idea when Robin's character was introduced, it was huge, and I can totally see why that was the time. Like, that's when you do that cosplay, because it's big deal right now. But it's the one where unless it's the kind of cosplay that you love to wear, it might not be the same reaction, the same feel. And I say I'm not, as someone who tends to go to most cons wearing the exact same outfit every time, which is a plain t-shirt with Nerd OD on it and dreams.
I was going to say, it's not plain. It's not plain.
It's not plain. It's not plain. No. But I think that's the thing. If it's in the moment, and it's that thing of, this is the right time to wear this costume, then it's fair to say that it may have passed. Although saying that, I did see at the con this weekend, I did see a Mirabelle and Isabella. And they were, I don't know whether they were made or bought. The costumes were very, very good. And the Isabella even gave me a little flower from her purse for my daughter, which was, because I did lead with the fact that my daughter is a big Isabella fan. I'm a Mirabelle fan, but that's fine. Don't think I could pull off the cosplay, though. That's for certain. No.
Hey, cosplay's for everyone.
Not that one for me, I don't think. No. So I have another question, because there was a realization at the weekend that I wasn't sure if I knew what your real hair looked like, because I've seen you wearing a lot of different wigs.
Yes.
And good wigs.
This is my real hair. Spoiler alert, by the way. This is my real hair. So, yeah.
But no, you have good wigs that are very convincing wigs that you don't know. How many wigs do you have?
Let me think. So, I mean, I don't know if I use the same wig for any two outfits.
Oh, wow.
So, pretty much a wig. I mean, Max has a wig. Other Max has a wig. 11 has a wig. Robin has a wig.
Wow.
Maya, probably like 15.
Wow.
But Kaylee uses my normal hair. Of course you can. There's loads. I'm sure I've got one going spare. What colour do you want? What is your colour?
That's a great question. For another time, perhaps.
We can test them out. I'll bring a few to con.
Absolutely. So that's the question. Sort of, what's the next costume? Are you waiting for your next spark, or have you already got one in mind? Or is that a spoiler?
So I have. Maybe it's a bit of a spoiler, but no, I have some plans. So I think I have like 3 that I want to do this year for definite. There's always ones in Cosplanner that, some of them have been in there for absolute years. Like I have sort of, there's some quite obscure ones that I'm like, will I ever do this? I hope so. Like one of, this is not the question you asked, but one that's been in there for almost as long as I've been cosplaying. I will do it one day. Random, but Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Okay.
Love that movie. So I want to do Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's. That's on my cosplan list. Like the black silk dress and the pearls and that. But the hair is really awkward because she's got like the tiniest little fringe ever. And I'm not really sure if a wig can sort of achieve that. Well, I'm sure it can, but maybe not a wig that I'm capable of styling. So And I mean, that is so niche. Like, I don't know. But the thing is, I don't care if anyone even cares about that because I love that. So I will have a great time in it. So that's one of those. But yeah, so this year, so for London, I want to do a couple of new ones. So I'm wanting to do a Detroit cosplay, Detroit Become Human.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually, assuming sort of it all goes well, going to be the first cosplay I've ever bought.
Ooh.
Which like feels a bit controversial. Well, not controversial, but by my standards, because I never
yes.
do. Or I mean, don't get me wrong, I haven't made everything from scratch, but it would be like components that I would put together. But that will be pretty much a bought cosplay, so it feels a bit strange. But and I don't know if you know the game at all.
Again, I know of it. It's one of those ones where I haven't played it, unfortunately. But
yeah, so I justified it to myself in that because they're they're androids, so they all look exactly the same. There's like a bunch, they come off an assembly line basically. So I was kind of like, I could make this, but it will literally look exactly like that because it is almost like a uniform thing. So I was like, of all the things you can buy, so I justified it to myself. So that's going to be one day. So that should be fun because it's like I can't remember how many years now, but it's some sort of anniversary of the game on the London weekend. So it seemed like a fun time to do it. I don't know if it's 10 years seems like too long, but it is an anniversary anyway. And then very niche, but I'm hoping this year at some point to do a Veronica Mars cosplay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I literally love that show so much. I've seen it so many times. One of my favorite shows ever. But
awesome.
Yeah, that's quite an obscure one. And then maybe doing a Dragon Ball Z cosplay with my brother because I've just got him into cosplaying. So he did his first cosplay last year.
Nice.
So way back when I went to my first ever con, that London one, I said we went together. And then he hasn't really tended to do the Comic Cons, but I've got him back into it. And yeah, he cosplayed at his first con, really liked it last year. So I'm trying to, and we used to watch that together as kids. So it was like, it'd be a fun one to do together. So yeah,
family affair.
Those are the
mum makes the hats. Brother comes in costume too.
Yeah, he's the maths guy. So if I need like help with my measurements and stuff, he's the one I go to. So he does his bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, he definitely does. Help with the scaling of stuff. So yeah, so they're my kind of definite 3 for this year. But I mean, there's a million others that are like somewhere in the ether. Maybe they will happen.
And have you got good props planned for these costumes?
So Veronica's not too bad because she's gonna have like a big camera because she's like a PI, so magnifying glass. But there's a specific like square one that she has in like these promo photos, so I definitely need that one.
Nice.
Big camera. I don't know what I'm going to do for the Dragon Ball Z one though. That's definitely going to need to think about that. I'm going to have to shelve that if I can't think of any props. I don't know about that then.
Yeah, you've got a certain standard, right? You've got a certain standard.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to have at least one prop. I mean, Robin has literally about 6 or 7.
That's a lot of props.
Like it's got to the point where I'm like, I need to pick because there's like an ice cream scoop, the dictionary, the dictaphone. There's like the pens for the whiteboard. And then there was like something, and I'm like, I actually need to choose which ones I take sometimes because I don't have enough hands to have all the props.
The character hasn't got a bag, so how are you going to carry all the stuff with you, right?
Well, exactly. To be fair, though, I do use it. This was one of my like random bits of artistic license. I do use a bag for Robin, and it's a My Little Pony backpack because Erica has a My Little Pony backpack when she's helping them escape from the Russians, and I was like, it's a bit of a stretch, but I saw the My Little Pony backpack, I needed a bag, and I was like, maybe she borrowed it from Erica.
Creative storytelling is all it is.
So there you go.
How did Robin get Erica's backpack? There's the story. There's a story for it, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that there are so many cool characters, right? There's no end to who can dress as just these amazing things. And I always find it interesting when I go to cons and I see people dressed as characters from anime because I've never really had any interaction with anime, so I'll recognize certain shows, certain things, but I'm not aware of them. But I've seen people who go all out on it, and they have these incredibly elaborate costumes, and I see the reaction from people who are big on those things, and they go
Mhm.
crazy over it because it's just there. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really understand it, but that's cool. And I think to myself, it's probably how I reacted when I saw Kaylee cosplay the first time, because I was a bit like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, okay, so there is a bit of something for everyone, because you either have crazy elaborate cosplays made out of foam and latex and all huge items, or you've got your Rory cosplay from the Gilmore Girls, which is it's what I like about that one is that it's simple, but it's
Mhm.
niche and just right. So if someone is into that thing, they're going to see that cosplay and go, "Oh my god, you're Rory! That's so cool!" And that's the bit that gets me. The reason why I am a cosplay fan, although I'm not a cosplayer, is because I see that reaction that people give when they spot someone wearing their favorite character, especially when it's a
Yeah.
character who is not often dressed as. No
Mhm.
disrespect to various superhero comic book fandoms, but I have seen a lot of Jokers. I have seen a lot of
Yeah.
Batmen. I have seen a lot of Harley Quinns, a lot of Iron Men, and I love those characters in their own rights. But when you see a character who is that specific, like, oh wow, it's them, like
Yeah.
that's so
I think
cool.
it's a different kind of reaction that you get,
Yeah,
personally
yeah,
anyway. Like there's a few things that I've really liked the character, but straight away I've been like, there's just no point because there would just be too many.
yeah.
And that's not me being down on myself and my own skills or whatever, but I've just thought, what would make that stand out? There's so many of them. I'd rather do something that I think's gonna make a bit more of an impression,
Hmm.
if you like. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of really mainstream characters that I wouldn't. I mean, maybe if it was my absolute favorite ever character, I would still be like, screw it. But I tend to stay away from them.
Yeah.
Really, anything too super mainstream.
No, okay. Last question for me then. What's your comfiest cosplay? Because we often, when we're at Comic Cons, when I'm with the other guys from Nerd OD, we'll often look at and be like, all right, comfy cosplay. Right, that one's a pretty
Hmm.
comfy cosplay. We saw someone yesterday who was there as Merida from the scene in Wreck It Ralph. Ralph Breaks
Yes,
the
the
Internet, where she's in
pajamas.
her
Yeah,
pajamas and stuff. But it was cool because it was just on, and she had the cool curly wig. And I was like, it's pretty comfy though because you're wearing a flannel shirt and t-shirt and stuff. So,
yeah, and like
which of
Converse, pretty much.
yours do you think is your comfiest?
Um, to be fair, in recent years, I feel like maybe it's my age, but I'm starting to pick more and more comfy cosplays. Like I feel like they're all getting quite chill. Like back in the day,
Hey, you
like
just said that your
everything
next
was,
cosplay is going to be Holly Golightly in a cocktail dress and
yeah,
the rest of it.
that's
That's not going to be
okay.
that
Maybe
comfy.
maybe that's the real reason I've not done it yet because I'm like, oh god, no. But I mean, for me, for starters, anything that doesn't need a wig,
Right.
which is not many things. So like Kaylee is very comfy. She's overalls, she's boots, like flat boots. I don't have to wear a wig. It's my own hair that I just put up in buns. So she is very comfy. Max is very comfy. The one that I did this weekend, she does have a wig, but it's not a bad one. And she's literally jeans, t-shirt, hoodie, trainers. I mean, can't really complain there. Rory was pretty chill. Again, my own hair. Like I think there's only like I think it's only Kaylee, well, the Firefly people, because it's Kaylee and then there's Mal and Jane, but because they're like a gender bend thing, I feel like the hair doesn't matter so much because you're already doing a female version, and they're both brunettes, which is fortunate for me, so I don't have to be like it's them, but I have to be blonde or whatever. So
Yeah.
they're my real hair and Rory, and everyone else has a wig. So anyone that means I don't have to wear a wig is great. So probably Kaylee, to be honest. She probably still pips it as the most comfortable. But yeah,
And I almost didn't mention it, and you just reminded me there. I think it was that first weekend that we met, as I saw you as Kaylee, and then either later that day or the next day saw you as Mal
next
Reynolds,
day,
and I was like,
yeah,
and I'm running into your group and be like, oh, it's you, but now oh, that's so cool. Yeah,
yeah.
that was very cool.
That was the first. That was the first time we'd ever done that. Like done the swap, the gender bend thing. So that was really fun.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah.
No, that is awesome, and thank you for telling me about all of your stuff, because I realized that I see you in the costume, and then all these questions pop up in my head, and I'm thinking, probably should ask them at some point. I should figure these things out, and here we are, and I've asked them.
And now you've realised that the answers are like way more banal than you were thinking they would be. Just
hey,
like,
I am excited to have learned.
I saw this on Vinted and just
I'm
went for it.
excited to have learned about the cosplay inventory that you hold, because that I want to see that notebook one day. I want to see where all the
That's fine.
where it's
like
all stored.
when you put this podcast up, I'll take some stills of the pages and you can like put
the evidence.
Put them up.
The evidence.
Yeah, I'm not lying. It's definitely like box number 1, box number 2. This is in my wardrobe. This is it. Yeah, there's color coded. There's colors. There's different colors for different. Yeah, I'll send you pictures.
It sounds great. No, and that is fantastic. And I think that this is why I want to know about this stuff, right? I want to know. I don't do it. I want to know what's complicated. I want to know what's easy. I want to know what people enjoy doing. And I'm thinking that as our episodes progress and we have other guests on the show, hopefully they will have some of their exciting little tidbits. And I want to see who else has got notebooks and inventories. I want to see if that's a common thing that
I'm sure
cosplayers do.
It can't just be me. It can't just be me. Please, let's find someone else that does it. We'll search until we find someone else who has a weird notebook.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that, and thank you whoever out there is watching. And I guess we will see you again next time for some more Cosplay Confessional.
See you next time.